Come and exegete Matthew 28, 19 and 20 with me in original language. It says, therefore, go disciple all the nations, baptizing them into the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to obey everything or all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always until the end of the eternity, or end of eternity, which is exciting. So the first thing I want to do is have a look at this word therefore. This is a word called therefore, obviously, but it's pretty significant because it actually tells us that what Jesus is commanding in these passages and what comes next is actually grounded in what he just said in the previous verse, in verse 18. And this instruction then doesn't stand on its own, but it flows directly out of Jesus's authority, because verse 18 says, Jesus has been given all authority in heaven and on earth, and what follows is not advice, it's not a suggestion, but it is a rightful command. So the next two words I want to have a look at is this word here and this word here. This is like the word for go, and this is the word for disciple. So this is participle and this is a verb. So these are, I think I've already explained this before, but with Greek, they put the grammar into the word. And so it's built in. And so participle is like an ing word. That's how I like to describe it, like I'm going, that kind of thing. But in here, this particular participle, it's a nominative, it's plural, it's masculine, and it's aorist passive participle. Anyway, second word here is disciple. And so this here is actually a verb. So technically we don't have the word make in there. Like we in our English would say make disciples. And the reason why we do that is because to say disciple the nations, it's really better idiomatic English to say making disciples because it is that verb. And if you do speak another language, by the way, you will understand that it's really hard and pretty much impossible sometimes to get a word for word translation. So we do put the word make in there. Now that doesn't take away from the text. That doesn't go, oh, we're adding to the Bible. No, it's fine. It's helping people understand that this is an action word. This is a verb. This is the verb. So it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. But these two words, by the way, are grammatically linked. And this is really important because they work together as a single command. So even though go can sound like a descriptive word in English, in Greek, it shares the same commanding force as the verb go and make disciples. Jesus is not saying like if you happen to go, he's actually issuing an instruction, go. And I mentioned before that they're grammatically linked. And this is important when it comes to how we translate it. So there's two important things going on here that I really want to talk about. First is that when we see this particular kind of Greek construct where we have an aorist participle and an aorist imperative, it usually involves what we call an attendant circumstance participle. And that's important because it's used usually in 90% of the cases to introduce a new action or a shift in the narrative in the story. And this makes a lot of sense in the Jewish context because people didn't need to leave Jerusalem. I mean, if anything, converts were encouraged to come to Jerusalem because that's where the temple was. So this command to go is not actually minor. It represents a significant change in how God's mission is understood. Second, even though go comes first in the sentence, the main emphasis is not on the word go. The main emphasis is on the verb disciple or make disciples and what comes next. So the movement of going is necessary as a prerequisite. It creates the conditions for discipleship to happen. So you have to go in order to make disciples. So it's I think sometimes we put like an emphasis on this word go, and we might say things like as we go or while we're going, rah, 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 rah. Probably a more accurate translation would just be go as a because it's been modified and these words are grammatically connected. You would say that go is still a command, even though it's not in the imperative. It's connected and it modifies. But then also at the same time, the action is a prerequisite in order to make disciples. You have to go in order to make disciples. So it's kind of like going, I want to get a cup of tea, but in order to get a cup of tea, I've got to get off the couch. So get off the couch in order to make a cup of tea. It's the same thing. Go in order to make disciples. So you have to do that in order to make disciples. Anyway, so let's have another little see. So Oh, by the way, there's no grammatical grounds for giving this particular participle a temporal sort of idea. So it's ongoing. So like I said, the core command here, or the main idea, is that we're to disciple the nations. So in English, we say, like I said, we make disciples. That's totally fine to use that instead of just disciple nations. So this particular form, by the way, is an aorist imperative. And now this is kind of important too, because here, in this context, it actually expresses urgency. So it is urgent for us to go in order to make disciples. So Jesus is calling us, he's calling for decisive and intentional action, not just passive belief. So the next two words I want to look at are these two words, baptizing, you, and teaching. And these are participles as well. And they also explain how the command of making disciples is carried out. You see, Jesus is not adding extra instructions alongside making disciples. He's showing us the means by which disciples are formed. And these participles are participles of means. And I wonder if you've ever struggled to kind of articulate, like when people say like, oh, you need to go make disciples. And you're like, yeah, cool. You know, it's following Jesus. And then you're like, well, is there like a step-by-step, like, well, how do you make disciples? No, just me. Cool. Anyway, sometimes it's hard to articulate. Well, Jesus, lucky, because Jesus actually makes it really clear in this passage how to make disciples. We are to make disciples by baptizing them and by teaching them. And that's why baptism isn't just an optional add-on or a symbolic extra in our Christian faith. It's one of the concrete ways in which discipleship actually takes place. So another word I want to have a look at here is this particular word here. Now, Jesus uses this here really intentionally because it's strong, because it's a particular use of a pronoun. And he could have used a different pronoun, but instead he used this. He could have said all that, but Jesus' language here is really strong. He's saying everything. Jesus' commands, everything. So the point here is that we can't be selective in our obedience or picking what parts feel comfortable. The call to pass on the whole teaching of Jesus in its fullness. So that's exciting. So if we're to go back then, let's have a look. Therefore, go in order to make disciples of all the nations. And how do we do that? We baptize them into the name of the Father and the Son and of the Holy Spirit. And how else do we make disciples? We teach them to obey everything that Jesus commands. Everything. So like we can't pick and choose, but it's absolutely everything that Jesus commands. And the promise that he is with us and the promise that he will never leave us for all of eternity is awesome. So I hope that helps.